Hello everyone! Not going to do his in-suit thing today. We're just going to talk about, my channel, we talk about video games, we talk about politics sometimes, so we're going to mix the two together today. By V. Hart and Nicky Case. We're going to do this Parable of Polygons thing. So I'm going to do some really quick, little quick background thing. Nicky Case is, you might know him for his other works as well. The Game. Back when I was in college, The Game was pretty well known in the Newgrounds. Basically, it was this little small flash game where you had this little simple character on a platform, and he would jump off the platform and go ah, and then smash into the ground, and then make some like political quip. Like basically, it would talk, and it would repeat itself over and over again with different circumstances and kind of a different punchline, even though the premise of jumping off the platform was basically the same. But this is one that he's well known for. And the reason I wanted to cover it is because I'll show you later. It's a surprise. So, though, to be clickbaity, I might spoil it in the frickin' title. I'll probably spoil it in the title because that's the only way I'm going to get anyone to pay attention to this thing. So let's talk about, let's show how this works. And he got a lot of praise for this one because of how it was done. This is actually kind of probably the thing that they're most known for right now. At least Nicky, I know that he's pretty well known for this one. So here it goes. It's basically, it talks about segregation in a way of using interactive items here. So this is a story of how harmless choices can make a harmful world. These little cuties are 50% triangles, 50% squares, and 100% shapist. 100% slightly shapist. But only slightly. In fact, every polygon prefers being in a diverse crowd. So yay, they're diverse. You can only move them if they are unhappy with their immediate neighborhood. Only once they're okay where they are, you can't move them until they're unhappy with their neighbors are. They've only got one simple rule. I want to move if less than 1/3 of my neighbors are like me. So this guy here, he's like, oh my god, there's all these squares around. I don't want to be a square. And I'm so unhappy, and he moves really far away, and this guy becomes unhappy. But now this guy's happy. But nah, and he's like, oh no. So if two out of 6 neighbors are like me, exactly 1/3, so everyone's kind of happy. But meh, if everyone around me is the same, people are like meh. They're not unhappy, but they're just kind of eh. So harmless, right? Every polygon would be happy if they were mixed with each other. If they were in the center thing. This is what we want. Surely their small biases can't affect the larger society by that much. So these small biases, like this bias here, this oh my god, I'm unhappy because I'm around a lot of people that aren't like me. So basically, they're saying drag and drop until nobody's unhappy. It's like, don't just randomly pick empty spots. Don't think too much about it. So I move him here, and he's still unhappy because he's still surrounded by triangles. I move him here, he's still unhappy. Move him here, he's still he's happy because everyone's together. And move him there, and he's like, yeah, I'm happy. But this guy's like, oh my god, I'm surrounded by squares. Get me out of this popsicle stand. And then he's like, okay, yeah, I'm gonna move here. I'm happy now. So basically, oh my god, I'm still too many triangles. So we move people around, do all this, and eventually we move people around. Oh, why am I putting them there? So you kind of see what's going on here, right? At this point, I don't know if you do, but we're gonna see. You move here, you move here, you move here, yeah, sure, you go here, yeah, sure, you go here. Yeah, you go here. Yes, you are right there, and you, Mr. Triangle, you can go right there. Hey, we're there. Wait a minute. Hold on a second. Triangles and triangles and oh goodness. Look at these. They're together, aren't they? And our shape society has become segregated. Dang! Sometimes neighborhoods just become squares. And it's not their fault. If no triangles want to stick around, and a triangle neighborhood would welcome a square, but they can't help it if the squares aren't interested. So it's like, look at this. So you have these isolated guys, and what happens is you move them into their own neighborhoods, and hey, look, we're all meh. These guys in the middle are happy, but because they're diverse, but the guys on the outside are like, meh, we're okay. So, in this next bit, unhappy shapes automatically move to random spots. There's also a gross to show how much segregation happens over time. So basically, these shapes are random. So you click on this new board, and like they start off with random bits of segregation, but usually it's in the low 1 to 2 range. But let's start moving them, and all of a sudden, segregation over time goes up. And this is following those principles listed above. They move until 1/3 of it, so it gets up to 54%. Try it again, and we're up to 48. So basically, this is the whole thing about science. It's like you do some rules, and you do several cases and see what happens over time. And as you can see, and you can visually see how segregated it is, and look at how diverse this is. And then we're moving together. Everyone's moving out into their neighborhoods, and all of a sudden you have this segregation problem. So this is not like government-sanctioned segregation either. This is voluntary segregation, which I think in the modern era is kind of what we're dealing with. Back in the like in the 60s and prior to that, when we're dealing with the concept of segregation, it was business and sort of even government-sanctioned segregation, where the government actually encouraged and private practice actually kind of encouraged segregating out the population based on the different groups, so that they could avoid quote-unquote conflicts, or or just because they were trying to keep individuals in society down, which was mostly the way it was done in practice. So as you can see, even if it's done in a voluntary rule set, it can happen this way too. So here you go. What's up with that? These are shapes. These are good shapes, nice shapes. And yet, even though every individual has only a slight bias, the entire shape society cracks and splits. So here we have an extremely diverse guy, and there's just one guy over here who's unhappy because of these boxes are kind of in their own neighborhood, and he's like, man, this square neighborhood's too much for me. Move me out of here. So I can only move him to 1 or 2 spots. I can move him over here. There's not much room to move him. But now I move him out of there, and he was the only one keeping these two sane. And him moving in over here has made this guy go, oh my gosh, look at all these triangles moving in. Build a wall, for crying out loud. So now I move him out, and he's still unhappy, but I can move him over here, and now he's happy, and now I'm going to move over here, and now these guys over here are like, man, where'd all the triangles go? I like them. That triangles knew how to party, man. What the heck's going on? So, but now all these guys are like, oh my gosh, there's too many triangles, man. I got to hang out with some squares. And then, oh no, what's going on here? Uh-oh. Gosh, my clicking skills. If this were a first-person shooter, I'd be dead by now. Good thing it's not. Hey, there we go. Now everyone's happy, but most of them are meh. So what it's saying here is a small individual bias can lead to a large collective bias. Equality is an unstable equilibrium. The smallest of bias can push a whole society past the tipping point. Well, what if we taught these shapes to have zero bias, or if you're feeling particularly nasty today, more bias? Use the sliders to adjust the individual biases. So here's where we get to change that first rule of this particular equation, and that was I want to move out of my frickin' neighborhood if basically a certain percentage of my neighbors are not like me. So if less than 33% of my neighbors are like me, then I'm going to want to move out. So all of these guys are like, oh God. So once again, this is right now at this point, this is exactly the same as this one up here. So it's going to basically have the same kind of results as we saw at the top one, but this one he gives you the option of moving these from left to right. So what I can do is get a new board, and I can put 0 bias and then start moving, and oh, we're good. Yay! And so it stays diverse. So even if it's at 0%, no one's going to move. So basically it's going to be wherever all this is. So what if I give them more bias? What if I go up to 50 or something? and I'm going to start moving them. It takes a little longer because a lot more moving is going on, but we notice that over time segregation goes really high, and you can repeat that. So this is actually like, it's like, oh man, it's getting much worse. Or if we go back to like maybe a smaller bias like 10% and we start moving 5%, 3%, 7%. So, you know, it trends in the kind of direction you think about. So notice how things start to get, notice how much more segregated things become when you increase the bias beyond 33%. What if the threshold was 50? Seems reasonable for a shape to prefer not wanting to be in the minority. So, wants to move if less than 33% of their neighbors like them, wants to move if less than 50% of their neighbors like them. So basically if I go like that, hey, look at that, everyone's happy. But if I do that here, these guys go off. No, we gotta move you over here, yeah, you over here. So this becomes harder, yeah? So look at that. Look at these two shapes. This is 33%, this is 50%. And basically I did the same first move, and this one's definitely more diverse than this one, but that's a small sample set. So yeah, just turn everyone's bias to 0, right? So so everyone, you know, just turn everyone's biases to 0 and we can fix segregation, right? We can fix segregation. He goes, haha, nope, the real world just doesn't start new with a random shuffle of citizens every day. Every day you're not shuffling. World starts segregated. What happens when you lower the bias? So what he's saying here is that, oh yeah, sure, if the bias is 0 and we shuffle a new board, sure, it'll stay wherever it is, which is pretty low. But in a world where we were at, like, say, a 50% to start, so let's say we moved everyone to 50% and did this, and then went, okay, you know what, you're not biased now. Everyone was racist now. Everyone's not racist. Everyone move. Oh, shoot. So basically this is the principle that he's going to be talking about here. So so now the world starts segregated at 53%. What happens if we lower the bias to 0? Nothing happens. Because everyone's meh. We like where we are. We're fine with it. I mean, we're not biased or anything. It's just we don't move unless we don't like someone. All right? That's the only time we don't move. So see what happened. See what doesn't happen. No change. No mixing back together. In a world where biased ever existed, being unbiased isn't enough. We're going to need active measures. What if shapes wanted to seek out a little more variety? So now we add a new rule. We add a rule that goes, what do we do if they wanted to move at a time when I'm acting as if nothing happened there. I gotta remember to plug this stupid thing in. Anyways, so basically it's like these guys is like, man, all you squares, man, I'm a square, but I don't want to live with no squares. And Triangle's like, man, we need some more squares up in here because this is not good. So we added this new rule that says, well, we want more than 50% of their neighbors. If more than 90% of our neighbors are like them, then they're going to be like, oh no, man. So if we go like this, and 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 we go like that, and hey. So whoa, even though each polygon would be okay with having up to 90% of their neighbors that are like them, they all mix together. Well, let's play this out on a larger scale. When we change the amount of bias and anti-bias for all shapes. World starts as segregated. So what happens when these demand even a small bit of diversity? So right now it says move if less than 10%. So basically he lowered it from a third because it used to be a third. So he lowered that first rule to a third and said greater than 80%. So he dropped this to 80%. So basically if more than 80% of their neighbors are like them, like this one guys over here and these guys over here and all these guys down here and all these guys over here, and start moving. So you notice how segregation starts to go down. Cool. Yeah. Oops. Get out of the dark zones. But as you can see, segregation went down to 0, and according to this algorithm. Mostly they're kind of like in rows and lines. It's kind of cool. So let's try that again. But yeah, it says, so all it takes is a change of perception in an acceptable environment looks like. So fellow shapes, remember, it's not about triangles versus squares. It's about deciding that we want the world to look like and settling for no less. So get them all to the box of friendship. Oh, yeah, let's dive right in. Oh, come on, man. Don't you want to come with it? No, I'm fine. I'm by myself here. Sure, okay. Okay, I can't do it that way, so... By the way, spoilers if you don't know how to solve the final puzzle. You gotta leapfrog. Let's go hand in hand together. Kumbaya into the rainbow. So at first, being alone is isolating, but working together, we can get there. So finally, a big old sandbox to play with. So you can actually even change like the diversity of the shapes in this one too, which is kind of cool. So this one's like the ultimate sandbox where you can start messing with things. So wrapping up, small individual bias goes to large collective bias. When someone says a culture is shapist, they're not saying that the individuals in it are shapists. They're not attacking you personally. So basically they're saying that the segregation is not really part of the individuals, really. It's basically historical. The past haunts the present. Your bedroom floor doesn't stop being dirty just because you stop dropping food all over the carpet. Creating equality is like staying clean. It takes work, and it's always a work in progress. Demand diversity near you. If small biases created the mess you're in, small anti-biases might fix it. Look around you, your friends, your colleagues, that conference you're attending. If you're all triangles, you're missing out on something amazing. You're missing out on some amazing squares in your life. That's unfair to everyone. Reach out beyond your immediate neighbors. Thank you for playing this blog post. So the message of it is pretty solid. It's pretty cool. And it's kind of hard to really think about. It's kind of interesting to think about in a terms of politics and stuff like that. I call this kind of thing the era of voluntary segregation. And the reason I call it the era of voluntary segregation is because we, in the United States at least, had a issue where we had, like, as I said, government-sanctioned segregation, and government-sanctioned and business-sanctioned segregation, where businesses and public facilities encouraged separating blacks and whites, separating out immigrants and stuff like that. And now it's like people have different demands and different things, and those things are causing conflicts. Some people just want to work, they want jobs, and they worry that other people are going to take jobs from them, and et cetera, et cetera. There's immediate concerns and demands. So it is a really complicated, really messy subject. This makes a very interesting, clear-cut case where it's like we have neighborhoods that are segregated in this country, where we have pockets of, certain individuals, like, we have certain pockets of black groups, pockets of whites in our residential areas. It's like, and how do you fix that issue? How do you make it so that, they would want to integrate more, or can integrate more? And that's an interesting, problem. It's a very hard problem to fix, and I don't think even just demanding diversity will fix the problem, because, as simple as it sounds, it's like, oh yeah, just demand diversity. It's like, yeah, but we don't reshuffle the board every time we start over. There's issues like economics, and how our neighborhoods, our physical neighborhoods, are basically broken down into economics as well, and that actually plays a huge factor, because it's like, if you can't afford the house, then you're not going to be able to move there. As much as you want to integrate with those richer people who happen to be all of a different race or whatever, it's going to be hard to do that if you're having this issue. So how can you make a society where people would want to voluntarily integrate? And that's a solid question. I thought, you think of things like Well, maybe a property tax break if if you move into a neighborhood that is very much different than you, or and your neighbors also get a tax break, so they like you because you moving in means they get a tax break. You know what I mean? So making the government kind of use benefits, like reward people for integrating and not punishing those who don't. Make sure you don't punish those who don't, because that's the whole thing, is you want to make sure that you're not harming individuals and making them and feeling like they're forcing it into something, just trying to get them to do something. Even that comes with its own caveats though too, and it's a really hard problem, and it's one that we were kind of born into. As you said, we don't reshuffle the board. But I do have one interesting solution, which I'm going to go back to this one here, where the world starts segregated. So there's a way with just this one slider that you can actually desegregate this particular aspect. So how do I do this? Well, okay, so we remember 50 here, so remember Mr. 50, so we're going to go up here. Now, what I'm going to show you is that there's a breaking point to this algorithm. And this is the fun part. And I hope Nicky's watching, because I'm sure he's going to have a ball with this one too. So here we have 52%, and we're really reaching the threshold of segregation here. Holy cow, that one square is kicking around there. So that's really, really bad. So let's kick it up a little more. Let's go to 75. And we're going to go. Oh, look at this going. No, it's ticking down a little bit, but it's going to... what is going on? Oh, it's going back up. It's going back up. It's going back up. Oh, wow, it's going really high. It's going really high. It's going really, really high. Oh, gosh. Oh, goodness. Look at this. Look at this go. Look at this go. Oh, it's so high. Oh, it's almost 100. You're almost there. There we go. Look at that. All right. Are you ready? Let's kick this into high gear. What's going on? Everyone is 100% racist. Look what's happening. What is going on? So this is what I call nomadic mode. After you hit the 75% threshold, after you go beyond that, all of a sudden, everyone starts integrating. But not because they don't not because, oh, kumbaya, I want to get together with my neighbors and have a fun time. You know why it's happening? Is because everybody is in animalistic mode. Everyone is like, oh my gosh, my neighbor's different than me. Oh my gosh, my neighbor's different than me. I gotta move, I gotta move, I gotta move, I gotta move, I gotta move. Look at me moving. Look at all this. And it's going down. It's doing the same effect as if everyone demanded integration. So everyone being afraid of each other to the point of animalistic fear and going nomadic has the same impact in this parable of polygons as people integrating into one another. So what I'm going to do is stop moving, and look at this. I'm going to move. Hey, everyone likes each other again. Hey, I solved the problem. So the problem is, how do we get people to segregate? I had 100% segregation, 100%, and I can do it again. It's repeatable. This happens every time you do this. So I'm going to go back up to 75, and it's going to go and it's going to click up there, and it's going to do that. And you can do this yourself and go to this website and try this out. You're going to have, this is going to take a long time, but basically, and I won't let it run the whole way. I'm going to wrap this video up. So basically, a way is interesting. This little quirk I found in this algorithm by bringing it to its most extremes, and it's interesting to think about that in the form of animalistic tendencies. It's actually our societal. We as a society, we're human beings, are social creatures. And it's kind of that interesting quirk in our social, brains that causes this concept called segregation. because we make snap judgments because we're an animal species, who make snap judgments because you have to do things quick to survive. You have to be instinctful to survive. You have to do these things by instinct. And so we make these snap judgments about, other people, other groups, other things outside of us. We'll make snap judgments about our neighbors. We'll make snap judgments about people of different color, race, age, sex, gender. We'll do those things really quickly, and we do these quick analyses because we don't, our species particularly back in the olden days, where we didn't have much time to think about things too much. We had to survive. We had to, we had to get farming. We had to get working. We had to get doing things. We had to be agrarian. We had to, we had to fight these wars. We had to do all this stuff, and so, it makes it so that we don't really have the time to analyze why we behave in our social manners, why we behave in the manners that we do. Now that we're kind of moving in the direction where we can actually sit back and think a little bit and analyze things around us, we can, start to analyze things such as this. So we face a society that became segregated because we were always in this survival mode. But then, we eventually started to form, biases and stuff like that. So it's interesting. It's an interesting topic to think about, and I'm kind of rambling on a bit. But in essence, so we're up at 84%. We can stop moving. And then basically, let's go into super nomadic mode and watch it collapse. So it's freaking weird, isn't it? It is freaking weird. It's like everyone hates everyone. Get out of my neighborhood. Everybody, get out. Get the F out. I'm moving everywhere. Everyone hates everyone. Super paranoia. This is not something that you'd want to happen in society, because everyone would be like, oh my gosh, I hate everything and everyone. And even just having one neighbor, basically what this is even if there is one, triangles are basically going, if there's one square next to me, I'm moving. That's basically what this is. So in real life, it'd be kind of like, well, if one black person moves into the white neighborhood, I'm moving out to another white neighborhood. But then they find that there's no white neighborhoods to move to because every other white person moved out because one black person moved into the neighborhood. That's basically what this is. And then all of a sudden I go, wait for it to lower. It's going back up a bit. Hold on. Stop. Go down a bit. Go down again. Okay. Everyone calm down and move back into your... Okay, 3 is good enough. All right. Everyone loves everyone again. Hooray. You solved the problem. So that's not as kumbaya as this one is, and so, but this was obviously the thing that we should be going in, is like having this thing demand that you're not doing anything. I also call this like the Overwatch or Team Fortress principle, where it's like, dude, we have 5 snipers on our team, man. Can we diversify a little bit? Or Overwatch, where it's like we have too many of this one class on our team. Can we just do that a bit? So this other one was just a completely funny thing that I broke their algorithm with, where being super racist, where you can't even live next to one person like you, makes you run away from society in general, particularly in a thing. Now this would break down a little bit if, say, if we didn't start off as an even ratio. So like, let's say we start off with this, and I do the whole super racist thing. Oh, well, hold on. I can't move because there's nowhere to move to. This is what happens when you give you too much power in a sandbox. So this is why this thing's kind of fun. So, if you don't start off with if you start off with a super majority, this concept of my super segregation doesn't work, because this is like everyone's super biased here. But because there's enough room to move around the board, and like the majority minority is not 50-50, people can actually start to cluster up together in segregated spaces. So that's also kind of a caveat to that whole that rule I set up there, where if you make super racism and then make everyone segregated, the segregation actually goes down. Whereas if I were to stop moving everyone and then just go back to about 50-50 and then start moving, everyone starts, and segregation never really goes up at all. So it's funsies. You can't really derive any, and this is kind of where it all gets down to, and kind of what I was getting to. Like, it's a fun little thing when you first look at it at first glance, and it's a cool message and everything. But when you start breaking down the algorithm to the point of extremes, there's certain things where it falls out of the message. Like saying, look at this, a super racist society. A society of super racists has very little segregation. If and only if the ratio of individuals is close to 50-50. So if there is a majority, then segregation actually physically happens. Now that's interesting too, is that in a super racist society, a lot of people might be in the ratio of the people in the area may be super majority versus a super minority and stuff like that. So those are other things to take into consideration. But anyways, I have rambled on and went on a lot longer than I thought I would, but this is fun. And you too can have fun playing this. Just go to this address up here, MENEN.me/polygons, and have yourself a ball playing with polygons. Play with your shapes. I haven't had this much fun playing with shapes since I was a kid. Since I was a kid playing with those put the shapes in the holes, man. That's bias. Put your shapes in the holes, man. Man, that's shapist, man. That's shapist. Shameful. Anyways, I'm gonna get the hop out of here. Thank you very much for watching. I hope you had fun watching me ramble about shapes. And have a good night, everyone. Thanks for watching.